Another 2-2 draw leaves Shels right in the mix. We hear Dunny's mid-term report and a big May bank holiday to come. And the women's team smash Linfield in the All-Ireland Cup. Lots to chat about on this week's show. Dunny, how are you today? A lovely spring afternoon. All good in the hood, yeah?
Nice day outside, yeah. As I was telling you off air there, we were at our good friend Lee Daly's stag yesterday on a Sunday. A little bit too much Keith Richards behaviour on a Sunday than I'd like, but we're okay.
Too much vino. Well, yeah. Well, congratulations, Keith. Not Keith. Sorry, Lee Daly. I knew you
yeah.
get Lee. Well done.
He's getting married next weekend, so
Wow.
congratulations to Lee, and and just obviously Lee's someone that every Shels fan I think owes a bit of a debt of gratitude to for his absolutely outstanding work in spearheading the South Talca Park campaign, and I know I'm certainly forever indebted to him. So yeah, big shout outs to Lee and congratulations.
Yeah, best of Lee and his. Yep. So last Friday night, Dunny, it was sort of like another copy and rinse and repeat. A game that I was watching on the TV. You were there with the great unwashed in Tala. It's we could almost copy a section of last week's show because it's 2-2 again. It's a lot of good, a lot of could do better stuff, but was it a fair result in the end, or was it another 2 points we let slip away?
Yeah, well, to paraphrase the great Oscar Wilde, who was a big Shels fan, as you know, that's it. To draw one match 2-2 may be seen as unfortunate, but to draw 3 matches consecutively 2-2 seems like carelessness. And unfortunately, I think it is a mixed bag. I think Damien Duff's comments and so on after the match would reflect that. But ultimately, you'd leave frustrated because with all the good that we did to get ourselves into a great position, we've once again conspired to shoot ourselves in the foot, really. And it's another week, another game where we could dissect, poorly conceded goals and so some questionable defending.
Well, the first half, watching on the TV, it was described best by, I think it was Keith Tracy, when he said it was very pedestrian, particularly from Shels. Gave Rovers way too much respect. I thought we were very sloppy. The whole tempo was, it was very sluggish. And when you look at Rovers at the back, when we finally gave it a bit of welly and put it up to them, they just don't seem. I don't think they have the legs at the back anymore, and we really did test them. I was scratching my head because I was chatting to someone last week after the Galway game in Talca, and I think Shels, I don't know what it is, but we just seem to perform better in the second half. It's almost like a team that needs to go a goal down before you get a reaction. Now, thankfully, we're not that sort of team. But we've heard Damien already this season saying the first half was a waste of a first half, or the 40. It seems to be something that we're just not getting out of our systems yet. And another 45 where we talk about the concessions of the goals a bit later, but we're really making life hard for ourselves first half of games.
We are, absolutely. I thought that the opening of the game was reasonably bright. I was stood pretty much on the halfway line and had a good sense of the tempo of things down close to the pitch, and we were kind of fizzing the ball around quite nicely, I think, in the first 10 minutes or so. And then I think we kind of almost lulled ourselves to sleep a little bit in that we got a bit too comfortable with the idea of sort of passing and moving almost like a training exercise. But then when Rovers sort of refused to stay at that tempo and upped it, we struggled. And it was clear that if Rovers couldn't play through us, and at times I thought Cara McEnroy and Ellis Chapman were particularly good all night. They made it difficult for the Rovers midfield at times. They'd just go long, and it was pretty transparent that there was a a plan from the off from Stephen Bradley to challenge us aerially. You know, if they couldn't get anything going through the middle, when it came to throws in the final third, they were being launched directly into the box. Corners were causing us trouble, and I got the sense pretty early on that they thought that they could physically and aerially dominate us. And that's kind of how it proved to be, really. We struggled very, very badly, I thought, to win headers in our own box all night. And ultimately, it was from being unable to clear one of those set pieces that gave Rovers the point in the end.
I couldn't quite see on the TV coverage, but was Mark Coyle targeted in any similar way to how Galway approached it earlier last week when they quite obviously and quite effectively seemed to single out Mark with a pacey striker / winger on top of him all night?
It wasn't quite the same, but what I did notice pretty early on again was he was being allowed to be the +1 at the back. So like almost all of our kickouts when we went short ended up at Mark Coyle's feet. So that sort of suggests that he was the player that they were happy enough to see on the ball back there. And he did spend quite a bit of time in the first half in particular in the sort of right fullback area of the field with the ball at his feet trying to play out. Now, he's well able to pick a pass. I wouldn't have said that he's our poorest player on the ball in any way, but they did seem to feel that, okay, well, if he's got the ball in there, the next movement out isn't going to be easy, and they pressured that next ball. So again, I think he's going to be suspended for the next game, so we'll see how we manage without him, and perhaps that's a window of opportunity for someone to stake their claim in his stead. But it's kind of looking a little tired now. I know we were asked the question last week, was that the end of the Mark Coyle experiment at centre back? And I said, well, we didn't have the luxury to end the experiment because of injuries. We may yet, we might delve into that as well. Obviously, we're losing Sambone. We may yet have to play Mark Coyle going forward at centre back, but it's starting to creak a little bit. You know, these are like this. Shamrock Rovers is one of the best teams in the country year on year. This isn't an easy task, even for a seasoned defender. So to have Mark in there trying to sort of learn on the job, you know, isn't ideal for him nor for us.
I think some people actually don't give Rovers the due credit that they deserve. Like in my own opinion, I think they're going to be the ones whoever finishes above them are going to be champions. That's just my own view. They're going through their own sticky patch. So things were going relatively okay first half. Dunny is always talent. Look, it's a tough old place to go. Everything was going relatively okay, approaching half time, and then we had a bit of a goal concession, which was in if you saw it up in the Phoenix Park, you'd be tearing your hair out. It was the player wasn't closed down. Healy, I think who it was, he wasn't closed down. He got a shot off that, 9 times out of 10, Conor Kearns would normally just put his foot in it and off we go again. It wasn't pretty looking on the replay. What were your thoughts when you look back at Dunny? Was it does Kearns have to hold his hand up and say, "Look, lads, mea culpa"?
Oh, 100%. But yeah, I mean, it was so. Let's call a spade a spade. It was so poor that at the match, almost everybody in unison around where I was assumed that it had taken a massive deflection.
Yeah.
People were saying it must have, like surely that's taken a deflection, and that was kind of the perceived thoughts. Now I was going off Mark Coyle's body language. I know that's one of the things that just it was in my eye line where when I looked out onto the pitch that he was gesticulating, he was facing Kearns in goal and kind of throwing his arms out, and I was like, oh, that doesn't look to me like the body language of someone who has seen his keeper beaten by a wicked deflection, you know.
Mm.
And then my pal Gaz O'Reilly gave a message into a group with the footage, and you could see it clearly in the replay that there was no deflection. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if we have questions about it later, the goalkeeping situation, but I think it's pretty is a pretty sober take, not a hot take, but a sober take to say that Conor Kearns is going through his most difficult spell between the sticks as a Shelbourne player, I'd say right now. It might be something that's attached to the fact that the injury crisis at the back has disrupted the sort of normalcy of what we had and the solid nature of the back line that we've previously had. And is this a symptom of that, or is it an independent thing? And that's happening alongside that. But either way, it's coming at a poor time, and we're conceding a lot of goals. We opened the show talking about mentioning Lee Daly. He actually had a lovely stat for me during the week, which I'll share with you. That he said in 2024, when we had Gav Malloy in the team, we were conceding on average 0.55 goals per game. So about half a goal every game. So and when we lost Gav Malloy, that went up to 0.85. We were still able to get over the line, obviously, in the league, but it was a bit of an increase, and we're now in 2025 we're conceding on average a goal a game, so 1.0 now this season. So we are scoring more, and we are more of a threat, and I think we spoke about this last week as well. We're a bit nicer on the eye than we were previously, but it's coming at a cost. That you're coughing up a goal a game, meaning that you need to score 2 to win a match, which isn't ideal. So 6 goals conceded in 3 games, 6 goals conceded in a week. We had 2 clean sheets prior to that.
Yeah.
This is something that we obviously need to get on top of quickly.
Yeah, I think the fact that what's in front of Kearns is, well, it's probably it's maybe not nailed down until close to kickoff. Well, maybe the day before, more or less, but I would imagine, doesn't have that solidity in front of him, and that could just allow that 1 or 2% of nervousness to creep in. Now, you are right. We have a couple of questions in on Conor. Now, before people start losing the run themselves, I think he absolutely redeemed himself with 2 or 3 very good saves in the game. But here's a question from Brian Curran. Conor Kearns, big error in the first half, redeemed himself in the second. His footwork isn't great. Look at his distribution from the back this season. And then, does Lorcan Healy come into the discussion? Donny?
Setting me up for some steaming cold takes. Well, look, again, I think first and foremost, I was talking. Swedish Mick accused me of potentially being a "What have you done for me lately?" merchant. After Friday. Now, I did say that this is a "What have you done for me lately?" league earlier in the season, but we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater and let it be unrecognised that Conor has been absolutely exceptional since he's come to the football club, and were it not for him, and frankly, some heroics last season, penalty saves, clean sheets, all manner of acrobatics between the sticks to keep our goals per game average as low as it was. So absolutely hats off. he was frequently said by the manager to be the best keeper in the league, and I would have been in full agreement with that last year. But as men of science, Andy, we have to look at the evidence presented, and the evidence presenting itself this year, isn't great viewing. There was the goal in the 1-1 draw at Talca, where
Rovers, was it?
Where he batted the ball down. Sorry, against Shamrock Rovers, yes, where he batted the ball down into the path of the only Rovers player in our box. He won't have been happy with that. I was disappointed. We mentioned the first goal against Galway last Monday. I don't think he covered himself in glory on either goal. I annoyed John Murnock at length yesterday, explaining to him over about a 25 to 30-minute period about why the second goal was also traceable back to Conor Kearns and his kick out that went directly into Brendan Clark's hands, which started the counter attack that ultimately saw us have to switch on the back foot, and that's what caught Mark Hoyle out, I think, with that long ball. The whole back line had been pushing forward. We had 100% of the ball, 10 minutes to kill on the clock, and as we're coming out of defence, the ball is punted all the way to the other end of the field to their goalkeeper. They restart, and within a matter of seconds, the ball's coming down 30 yards down on top of us, and the whole defence is completely at sea because of it. So that shows to me that he's not feeling completely in control of his own game. I think we need to give him time. I think he will be given time. I think he's earned that. But I know if I was Lorcan Healy, or if I was, a friend of his, I would be certainly saying that I think you should probably be knocking on the manager's door. I mean, this is number two goalkeeper is a difficult job, one of the most difficult jobs in football. I would say, and there are times when you have to be meek and accept the reality of your situation and just keep stum and team player and all that. And then there's times when you have to make a calculated decision to put your head above the parapet and say, look, this guy isn't doing great. I'm here. I'm working on day in, day out just as hard as everybody else is. I feel I'm deserving of a shot. Now, again, I don't think that's going to come this Friday against Derry, but I do think that conversation is probably one that's likely to have happened or to be happening shortly in the AOL, I would think. And I think Lorcan Healy would have an argument. I wouldn't play him on Friday, but you do start to wonder how many more costly errors it will take. That's the only thing. I mean, we could be sitting here in a fortnight's time, Andy, and be talking about 2 more clean sheets, or even frankly, it's a Friday, Monday, right? So after Waterford, we could have 6 more points on the board, and 2 1-0s or 2-2-0s or whatever, and say Kearns is back, he made some great saves, and this is all forgotten about. But the sort of drops in the bucket are starting to add up a little bit, and if there were to be more in this period, I think it's going to be a question that's hard to ignore.
I think it's a fair question from Brian. If it was somebody in the centre of the midfield, if it was a striker who wasn't scoring goals and there's so many games gone, people would be asking the same questions. And I think it's only fair that a goalkeeper, if there's reasons to discuss, that it is discussed. I completely agree with you, Dunny. I don't think there'll be any changes. I think Kearns is still one of the, if not the top keeper at the moment in the league. I think he is going through a bit of a sticky patch. You would be mad to say he's not. The word data, we all know data in football these days, Dunny. Back in my day when you'd see Alex Ferguson, he didn't carry an iPad around with him. It was all in the noggin. So if they're looking at the data, and good red coach Davey McAllister with his iPad, if they're looking at the data's not great. So they have to say, look, data, as you know, you're the man of science, Dunny. Data is a whole jumble of information. It's unorganized information, and it's only what you do with the data that you whichever way to use it. So you can use data in your favor. You can use it to to pro and against the case. So anyway, I don't think there'll be any changes for Kearns, but I have noticed his footwork with the ball, his distribution from the back. I've seen a lot more clearances or passes sail into Rose Ed. I've seen passes from the back intercepted. I've seen things that are just that 2% off that very top level. and perhaps we've just gotten away with it so far. But I would give some credence to the fact that his solid back wall in front of him is changing consistently, and like any good relationship on a football field, any good defender has to have confidence in what's behind them, and vice versa. So I think it's a fair question to ask. So fair play, Brian. You send them in, we'll ask them. You mentioned it a little bit earlier, Donny, and I put this up online the other day. Are Shels too nice overall? Are we just, we want to be liked, and, or do we just need to be dirty bastards now and again, or do we, are we just missing something in there at the moment? Are we just trying to be too perfect?
It's an interesting thought. Certainly, there was a large chunk of our very vocal and again very impressive away following on Friday, who were going absolutely berserk when a Rovers player was down, and we sort of immediately took the steam out of our play, and are kind of looking around, going, "Oh, should we put the ball out?" And the ref was saying, play on. It does that sort of vignette, that little window alone, sort of might suggest that we are too nice and that there's not enough bastards in the team who want to, make an advantage out of an unfortunate situation for the opposition. I don't think we're helped in the vacuum left behind by Paddy Barrett. To be honest, I think maybe his loss, not just to the back line, but to the overall sort of attitude that we bring to the pitch. I think we're missing him. I think he's a strong character. I think he's a no nonsense professional, and I think he exudes a kind of an aura that other players pick up on and feed into. And I think we could do it more of that. Is it, Mark Hoyle is normally that in the middle, but now he's been played out of position because of Paddy's absence, and we're losing Paddy, and Gannon has been in and out. Like, we're talking about Conor, who's now one of the senior players as well, having a difficult moment. These are a lot of big characters who are either absent or being used, to supplement other positions on the field. And it does kind of feel that doggedness has left us a little bit, and I don't think it's necessarily because we're trying to finesse things too much. I mean, I enjoy, and I think it's a positive thing that we're playing more sort of expansive possession-based football. We're trying things on the ball. We're confident on the ball. All that is good. That you can have that and be a horrible bastard to play against it as well. When you're defend like an animal. And I really do feel that the absence of Paddy Barrett is harming us. I just can't see that we would concede goals like we have been doing, and like that the equaliser particularly. You lose three contacts in a row in the box. That leads to a guy kind of sliding in and tapping it in on the line almost, like 3 contacts in a row. And just, I thought the tenor of the whole match, like, I didn't like that from Shamrock Rovers, to be honest. I didn't think it speaks great to of what Stephen Bradley and therefore other managers as well think of our ability to defend our own box.
Mm.
You know what I mean? When you see the 4 in a row champions, who are known for playing silky football, they're at home, nearly 8,000 people, and they get a throw in, and they're using it like a set piece in the last minute.
Yeah.
They're filling the box to the brim with players, and they're launching the ball in Rory Delap style. That to me was Stephen Bradley and the Rovers team putting the flag down and saying, we don't think you can defend properly. And unfortunately, the data, to borrow your phrase, would suggest that we can't. I lost count of how many times we didn't get first contact on the ball, or when we did, it was poor. It was going straight up in the air again, or sometimes it took Meepo and stuff coming back to actually win a solid header. So I'm a bit disappointed by that. I don't think that is the root cause of that is that we're trying to be too finessey. in our play.
Okay.
I just think that we're really missing some leadership.
A lot of comments in, Dunny. I'll just run through these. Feel free to jump in or comment as you go. Shell's goals were quality. We need to see more of this direct approach. James Norris was excellent. A similar query or similar comment here. We can see the benefits of early crosses and not the constant slow recycling of the ball. Rover's, as you said there, Dunny, Rover's second goal was a calamity. That's all it says. And then finally, McEnroy slash Bone injured. Any updates? Any comments on them, Dunny?
Yeah, I'd agree on our second goal. I think it was a wonderful move, really beautiful. And that's we're talking about. Are we trying to be too pretty? That was a beautiful goal.
Super
Started with
goal. Super goal,
yeah,
yeah.
started with Ellis Chapman as well. Lovely switch of play, just very tidy. Every single person who touched the ball in that move did the exact right thing and did it quickly and with intent. And look, Meepo had two players on him, and this is unfortunately the story of the night for him. He had a bit of a thankless task, to be honest, because he was sort of up there on his own a lot of the time, running around trying to chase people down. And then when we did supply him with something, he's double marked for that goal. That ball is pinpoint accurate because it had to be, because he was shielded on both sides by Rovers defenders. So only the fact that the ball was absolutely pinpoint was he able to even get the contact on it. And they had him on sort of lockdown for most of the game, and he did his best. But again, a thankless task. You'd have loved to have seen how maybe that dynamic might have changed had we had Sean Boyd available to play with Meepo. I would have loved to see those two put it up to the Rovers back four. So the positives, we can do that, and we're scoring beautiful goals. But unfortunately, when you're doing the opposite, I was sent a voice note of a non-League of Ireland fan who watched that goal and was saying it to his pal who played it for me, being like, "Oh, actually, maybe this League of Ireland stuff you were saying, is actually true. That was I'm here watching it at home, and that was a beautiful goal." And for a lot of people in this country, football, as they know it, is about to stop. With the Premier League and whatever, so like we're going to be on TV a lot, and the league is going to have a lot of eyeballs on it. Now with this new deal, and then the next few months in particular, when there's no football in the UK. But he was effusive in his praise of what a beautiful goal that was, and I couldn't help, as I was listening to it. It was so bittersweet, because I know that by the time he probably sent that text, we had conceded one of the most sloppy, horrible, disgusting
Shocking. Yeah.
goals. To absolutely not just that it was a horrible goal, but the fact that we couldn't even hang on a couple of minutes and then concede a goal like that. It was disgusting. So like that's the sort of beauty and the beast of what we're like these days, lately.
Yeah.
And in the last three games in particular, where you work yourself back into the game, you find yourself ahead, and then it's so demoralizing to not be able to hang on, or even to put up. Frankly, they didn't have to do a lot to score that goal. It was a boot up the channel from the restart. And and again, we talked about game management before, Andy, and the idea, does someone have to lose a contact lens, or
Just kill it. Yeah.
yeah, just kill the clock. Do a bit of awareness of this situation you find yourself in. You haven't been playing great, but you've hit a purple patch there at the start of the second half, where suddenly we've turned the game on its head. The fans are going berserk, bananas. It's fantastic. Rovers are rocked. Take the steam out of things for a
Yeah.
minute. The ball that eventually goes out for a corner, we should have kicked it out over out into the square, or burst the ball, or someone should have had the foresight to be like, okay, let's cool the jets here. And again, if it's a goalkeeper having to go down, we've stopped seeing that. I don't know whether there's been something that the officials have been doing, but the tactical goalkeeper injury, quote in air quotes, we haven't seen for a
True.
while, and God knows we could have done with it. Because as that, so we've conceded a corner straight from the restart, which is poor enough, and then we have 3 attempts at trying to get a block or a clearance on the ball as it's sort of just ricocheting around the box. And Rovers win the first, second, and ultimately the third touch, which ends up in the net. And as a Shels fan, and it just took the wind out of our sails so massively. There was a long time left, and look, credit, I suppose, in that there was a long time left on the clock at that stage. And we'd sort of seen this movie before, I thought, where I was like, okay, well, look, just 25 minutes or whatever there was left. You kind of thought, okay, we've done it. We're done for now. That if there was going to be a winner, it would be them. So at least we were able to hang on. But it's just so unfortunate that we didn't give ourselves the best platform to have some game management skills there, that would have given us a better chance at having all 3 points, because a 2-1 win with that Meepo goal in Tala would have had us top of the table, I think, or close enough to it. And just the energy we would get, like wins in Tala tend to be statement wins, whoever get them, and we don't get that many of them. And it was a real opportunity spurned there, I thought, Annie.
It went from the sublime to the ridiculous in around 90 seconds, Donny. A couple of other questions or comments here. Meatball was starting to find his form and confidence. Can we stop talking about Meatball now? I think we can. I think he was at top class tonight. I'm not sure what the update is on Sean Boyd. Duff was a little bit cagey on his. I don't know whether he was just still not over his bug or not, but hopefully Boyd is back this weekend. What will it take to make Shels explode into life? Results. I think this is because we're close. We're close to giving someone a real hiding and just getting things going. Don't we? I think we just have to keep working our way through this until it clicks.
Yeah.
Anything else? Yeah. What do you think on that one?
Yeah, I'd agree. It does kind of feel that we're teetering towards a lift off that we've yet to actualize. That we're showing glimpses of what could be, a 90-minute performance where we look at our best for long periods, and cut out the mistakes. Just on the injury situation, I didn't really answer the question earlier, but I'm pretty sure that the Kerr McEnroy injury is just an impact, so a knock. I wouldn't expect him to be out for any length of time. I frankly, gun to my head, I think he probably plays on Friday.
Yeah.
That would be my sense of things. Sam Bone, who knows? He went down. It was reminiscent of when he went down against Shamrock Rovers in the first round of fixtures, where he was just sat on the ground. I thought then, or we was sort of led to believe that was kind of clever injury management, and that he'd be back. He didn't want to do what John Martin did, say, and aggravate it further. But he disappeared then for weeks. So I don't know. It's unfortunate. Like, he's someone who was brought into the football club to cover a loss of Gav Malloy, obviously, and injuries, and he spent as long on the treatment table as any player. So it's unfortunate. Regarding what we need to click, we need to get the players back. I think it's that simple. I mean, like the good things that we're doing, it's not just a one and done. We're doing them in a lot of games now, consecutively. It's just a case of, if you could have Sean Gannon and Paddy Barrett, and maybe Lewis Temple in that team every week, alongside, and now fully sort of purring Ellis Chapman, a Harry Wood who looks back to to the Harry Wood of old, and Meepo finding the net. And yeah, I'm glad. I'm especially glad for Meepo, because there's some people I don't know why, who seem to want him to fail almost, but he's not failing. He's doing quite the opposite. I think, as you said, Andy, I think we kind of just have to ride this storm out, and hopefully when Paddy comes back in, that it does click. I'd be slightly wary of saying, because I remember I heard this a lot last year as well, that this idea that like, oh, some team is going to get a hiding,
Mm.
and we scored 3 goals in precisely one match the
Yeah.
entire season. So we were saying it all last year, and the biggest hiding anyone ever got, I think, was 3-1. So, but the spirit of it, I agree with. In that, I think we aren't far off. I think of putting in a more dominating display over teams. And look, we have more firepower this year, so you never know. We should be hitting. We scored 3 against Derry. We should be able to do that more frequently this year. You would hope.
Some more comments in here. Thanks to everyone who sent them in. No doubt, we seem to play better when we go behind. Glad to see Meepo starting to kick off, but really struggling to hold on to leads. We need some of our defenders back. Once Paddy and Lewis are back, I'm confident we'll kick on and turn those draws into win. That's the spirit, Ian. You should be on this show. Quick comment. Next one, Liam Byrne. Good red, Liam. Thanks for sending it in. It's getting frustrating waiting till our backs are against the wall to start playing proper football. Ali Coote needs to start through the middle every game. He makes things happen, although Duff doesn't seem to like playing him and Wood at the same time. One more, Dunny. And then this is from Darren. Daz, thanks, Daz. Seems we're trying to be too clever for our own good. Gannon and Chuck as fullbacks and play a back four is categorically our best way forward. I know we've had injuries, but last night we looked far more effective when we forced to move Caffrey up the field. And one final one, Dunny, from Lee McDermott. Good red. Nothing to worry about at all. Very happy with where we are considering the injuries we've had. 1 point off the top of the table. No one has blown us away this season. Be no stopping us soon. That's the spirit, Lee.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think the majority of Reds out there are generally on the same page, Dunny. So I don't know if there's something in the water out in Talca Park, but normally we don't have this sort of rough agreement. But I think I was looking at the table actually there on Saturday, after the weekend game, Cork and Sligo. It's nip and tuck basically now. As Dunny, of course, you're an educator, so I was going to ask you for Dunny's midterm report. And it's something you do all the time, Dunny. Let me roll off some stats to you here. We've played 12 games. We've won 4, drawn 7. We're 1 point off the top of the table. We've played 6 home games, won 2 of them. So we seem to be, would it be fair to say that the good old fashioned could do better? Is that the report going home to Damien Duff in County Wicklow?
I think so. Yeah, could do better. That's the sort of panacea for everything. I don't know anyone who couldn't do slightly better at something. But yeah, I think just hearing you say those figures, Andy, it sort of it really does speak to the truth behind a bit of a lackluster home form. It's hard not to still sort of dwell on the Cork draw, which is looking worse by the week, and following on then to the Drogheda defeat, that kind of punctured our sort of drive that we had at home to get things going. We didn't help ourselves, as previously discussed, obviously against Galway, where we had 10 minutes on the clock, had a goal lead, and conspired to blow that. So it's a crazy amount of draws. I mean, it is a bit worrying when you look at like teams who hitherto have been sort of said to be having poor seasons, like say Derry and Bows. They've won more football matches this year than we have. The thing that you would, if you want to paint it in a positive light, is that we are extremely hard to beat. One defeat in a game where we had a lot of chances, and we didn't score somehow that night, but we came extremely close. So like that could have been a 1-1 draw just as easy as well. And then you're looking at 8 draws from 12. I mean, it's a crazy amount of draws. And as we've discussed previously, Andy, not every draw is created equal. Sometimes, you'd be delighted with it with a point. Other times, you really feel like it's been 2 points absolutely wasted. So, it doesn't get any easier. We're going up to the Brandywell, and then you got the Friday Monday situation, and the added dynamic, of course, of the injury crisis. So we could be sitting pretty on Monday, after 2 good performances and hopefully 6 points, or at least 4. But if there was to be a draw and a loss, or 2 draws, you're suddenly going, okay, well, this drawing every week thing is starting to get a bit old.
Yeah, and look at Bohemians, who I don't like saying their name, but they've played 12, and up till around 3 weeks ago, it was like the mutiny on the Bounty up the road there. They've now won 3 of the last 4, or 4 of the last 5. I think
Yep.
the only defeat they had was to us. So they've drawn none, they've won 6, lost 6, and they're 1 point behind us. So anyway, so as I said, we're sort of at a midterm. This time last year we went to Derry as well, Dunny, on the Monday, Bank Holiday Monday, and that was the
Sean Boyd.
John Boyd very late equaliser, which again proved to be absolutely crucial come late October. Duffer, just before we move on to those games, Duffer gave the team he mentioned after his post match on Friday, he's given the lads the weekend off. I think that's good management. It's just to give them a chance just to decompress, go out and watch a movie, go out and give the kids, cut the grass, whatever, just to start afresh. So I think Damien, again, little things like that are good management, because the lads, to be fair to them, they worked their socks off, and it's been a fairly hectic 2 months. Just before, as I said, Donny, we've played 12 games. We had a question last week about Sean Gannon in Europe, which started to get my juices flowing, and the European dream and all this stuff. So I was actually looking at the fixtures between now. So we're almost into May. This weekend will be May. Between now and our European game in mid-ish July, up to that break, we'll have 13 more league games. So by the time we kick a football in Europe, we'll have played 25 league games, with 11 remaining when we come back. So this next third-ish of the season it's like in golf, they call Saturday the moving day. You spend your Thursday, Friday getting yourself into position to make the cut, but on the Saturdays it's the moving day. Is this the moving day for us, Donny? The next 2 months?
Yeah, I think it absolutely is. It is for everybody, really, because they really do, particularly for the teams who'll be competing in Europe, they absolutely front load the hell out of the season. And wow, just hearing the figures there about how few games there'll be left after Europe is eye opening stuff, really. And look, again, we're playing good football. There is a definite sort of unity of purpose at the football club. I think that's pretty tangible. It's the reason why we can draw 3 games in a row and have absolutely no head loss from the fans. I think it's because we see the evidence in front of us, and how well we are playing, and how difficult we are to beat. But you're right in that it's a very crucial time, and things are so tight in the league that it could really, any team that manages to put 4 or 5 wins in a small period of time together will shoot up to the top of the table. Other teams will get left behind. The only sort of nagging feeling that I have associated with it is I'm just concerned about the bodies, the fact that this is a front-loaded season, with Europe soon to come. All the games are going to start taking on more and more significance as we go. We've got another Friday, Monday weekend coming up, and we are dropping like flies at the back. Hopefully we see Paddy Barrett, Lewis Temple sooner rather than later. Hopefully Sam Bone's injury isn't significant. Obviously, ditto with Kerr McEnroy, but with a full deck of cards, I would fancy us against anybody, and I'm very much looking forward to the European draw. It does kind of feel like we are playing with one hand tied behind our back a little bit, in that we're constantly having to change things around, to shift and move
Yeah,
players, to find new ways of working around whatever the problem is. And credit has to go to the manager. To be fair, he is not allowing that to be used as an excuse. He's not allowing the players, I'm sure, to feel that they have an excuse, um, uh, that they're victims of circumstance. There's no playing the victim card at all happening at the football club, and that's to be commended. But surely, it's a matter of time before karma does us a bit of a favour.
hope so. I saw video footage of the squad in Tala. Looks like Lewis Temple is out of his boot, his protective boot, but I'd say he's probably the whole month of May away. Having spoken to him about 2 or 3 weeks, that was his time frame. Let's see what happens to Sam Bone. One name you may or may not know is a young man called James Roach, who was featured in a number of our squads. Dunny, he's 17. We signed him, I think, from Rovers last year, Shamrock Rovers.
Mm-hmm.
He's one for the future. I have done a bit of homework on James, and I've heard from well-placed people that this guy has got something special about him. So no pressure, James. If and when he gets the nod, you never know. We could feature. We're not far off asking Dunny to come back out of retirement. God forbid.
God forbid is right.
God forbid. So we've been rambling away here for a good bit now, Dunny, but let's talk about the weekend ahead. We have Derry away Friday, and they're they've put together a couple of really big wins, and then they go away and they lose to Waterford. Waterford have their own issues, but I think it would be a very foolish man to write off any team. And I'm sort of edging that towards what will happen on Monday against Waterford. But first up, Friday, Dunny, Derry had got, I think, 2 wins in a row. They had started to get some form, and then they go and shoot themselves in the foot on Friday away to Waterford. Do you think a draw is on the cards on Friday, or can we go back and repeat the magic of last November? Let the emotions take over.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's not another Desmond, right? That we might be setting world records for the amount of 2-2s in a row. But I can't help but feel that this Derry team are very get-atable. That result in Waterford is, evidence to that. I would say that when the wind is in their sails and they're feeling themselves, they can be as good as anyone in the league. But they are prone to capitulation, and when the going gets tough, they often lie down. So it's a little worrying that Gavin White seems to be suddenly showing the form that we might have expected when we saw him sign, and we spoke about them in the first couple of episodes of the pod. And he was sort of a one to watch. Boyce hasn't really taken off up front, but Gavin White seems to be motoring now, and on his day he would be pound for pound as good as any player in the league, I think. So look, we'll have to be on it. We'll have to be as determined and dogged and stick at it from minute one until we get opportunities. But I think they will give us opportunities, and I'd be confident that we'll get a result. Whether we can edge a win, if I was to put my neck on the line, I might say a 2-1 away win. But that's the toxic positivity looms large in that prediction. But yeah, I think they're get-atable, and I think we could nick it. If not, it then rolls into Monday, and suddenly you've got not a very sexy fixture on a bank holiday weekend, where you're going to be expected to show up and perform and win. And were we to to come off the back of a poor result, that would heap some pressure on our shoulders. But hopefully, rather than it being a negative thing, hopefully we get a good result on Friday, and that will motivate us to keep the good times rolling in Talca on a Monday. Because that's, frankly, in a very tight league, that kind of fixture is about as easy a one on paper as you're going to get, I would say.
Home form has to improve. It's as simple as that. Maybe not even the form, the results.
Yeah.
It's about results, and I don't need to say that to anyone, because who am I to say that? But I'm be absolutely certain that the coaching staff know that the home form must improve. Dunny, if you had the option on Friday night, would you like to see Meepo and Sean Boyd up front and just pepper those lovely balls in from Norris and from Wood or whoever, and give this Derry defence a good old rattle? Because I'm not a huge admirer of Brian Maher. I think I'm sure he's a lovely chap, but as a goalkeeper, I think he is a little bit open to those sort of high balls in. So I think I'd love to see us go for it from the start.
Yeah, he's given us a few gifts. Good old Brian. I remember him passing one straight to Jack Moylan, just
Yes.
slap it into the net up there. Of course, it'll be the first time we're up there in front of the Harry Wood Memorial Stand, behind the goal.
I'll miss the tractors and the JCBs
yeah,
from the footage. But
it'd be great. It'd be great if Harry actually opened his account by scoring up there again. I'm sure he'd love to do that. But yeah, I think getting at them, I said that they're get atable. So I think we need to try and ruffle their feathers very, early and often. I think Meepo and Boyd, I have a feeling he mightn't be available. I'd probably still go Meepo and John Martin. Martin is an absolute menace. And he wouldn't give their defenders a second's piece. So I think you could get a lot, almost the same amount of joy really out of those two. And if you have Harry, Chapman, Coote possibly, running at them, or as you said, Norris delivering enticing crosses, that's a tough night at the office for anybody.
Fingers crossed we can repeat the heroics of last November and follow it up on Monday with a good weekend. 4 points. Would you be happy enough with that from a weekend's work, Johnny? Or should we be aiming for the top, the max?
Obviously, you're hoping for 6, but I think that, as you sort of suggested yourself, Andy, I think if we were to win on Friday and then draw it, it depends on the manner of the 4. Exactly. If it's going to be 4, it better be a home win and an away draw. You know what I mean? Because that would kind of fall flat if you manage to go to the Brandywell and win, which we know is not easy, and then you follow that up by dropping points again at home. That's going to lead to a bit of a sour taste. So 4 points would be fine if we draw on Derry. I think we can accept that.
Lovely. We have next Monday is Waterford, and then we'll chat on this one next week. 4 days after that, and talk again, I think, is Pats. I think Pats are in town. So these games are coming very thick and fast. So, Donny, let's leave the men's stuff there. Again, thanks to everyone who sent in all the questions, comments, feedback. If you would be kind enough to take a moment just to go in and rate the show wherever you're listening to it, that gives us a great boost, and it somehow helps the data, which we love the data. So please, any questions anyway, always send them in. You can see all our information on the show notes. So, Dunny, I know you were preparing for a massive stag do on Sunday. I didn't see you in talk on Saturday for the All Ireland Cup launch. Group A got underway. Shels invited our old friends Linfield to town. Always something nice. Well, maybe not nice, but something a bit refreshing to see the blue of Linfield coming to Talca Park. Brings back mixed memories. But Owen Wearin got off to the perfect start. 5-1 win. Shels were very, very entertaining, and they really put Linfield to the sword. Your thoughts on that one, Dunny? I know it was a cup game, so to speak, so chance for Owen to make a few changes as well to his starting 11.
Yeah, I don't think it could have gone much better, to be honest. The fact is, we spoke about last week. You know what that the competition in and of itself can be a bit underwhelming, unless you make it to the latter stages. But it was an opportunity to give minutes in the legs to those who've had to be patient and bide their time, um, and that's exactly what he did. So there was starts for Gabby Del Pico, Nia Hannon was back in. Who else? Maeve Walmer obviously got off the mark with her first senior goal as well, which is great. Um, so and Roman McLaughlin got more minutes. So yeah, I mean it shows the quality in the squad really. I mean it is kind of two players for every position, or the depth chart is very very good in our favor. So yeah, to be able to ring the changes and still give a convincing display with a lot of goals and this Owen Wearin 2.0 swashbuckling goal scoring football. It's a tonic from last year. It's a big departure and it's great. So another 5 goals. It was 2 sevens in a row prior to that. Great to see Kate Mooney scoring a couple of goals as well, because she had such a fantastic impact last year, driving us on in the league and obviously in the cup win as well. And having scored in the first minute at the start of the season, you were thinking she was just taking off from where she had left it last year. But kind of, with all the goals raining in, it might sort of distract the average fan from kind of saying, well, she was not scoring as many as you might expect with so many goals flying in. So great to see her get a brace, and I think that'll do her confidence good. And yeah, we sit top of the group. What harm?
Yep. Is any trophy is worth winning, Donny, but I can understand why some. I was looking through the results, and it was heavily tilted towards League of Ireland clubs dominating the results. There's a couple of reasons for that. In my research for the LOITV at the weekend, the Northern Ireland Football League doesn't actually get going until May 9th, so just under 2 weeks away. So they really haven't played any proper competitive games. Is it a trophy worth winning, considering there's only 3 trophies available: League, FAI Cup, and then this? You got to go for it, don't you?
Absolutely, yeah. And it's a good incentive, as I said, for those who feel that maybe they haven't played as many minutes in the league as they'd like. This is a great chance for them to put their hat in the ring. And as I said, we've just, for whatever reason, we've not been able to. It's been dominated by Galway, right? This competition to now, and probably the Galway fans probably think this is great crack, but you have to kind of imbue the trophy with a value, and we've yet to do that because we haven't taken part in the final. So I think that be a nice feather in the cap actually for our own Weirn this year to go, and let's try do something we've not done before. We've won cups before, we've won the league title before. Obviously, we want that as well, but no one's been able to lift this trophy. And I think actually, not to be too self-important, but I think if Shelburne were to get to a final and win it, it might actually give the competition a bit more gravitas, because I think on our day we're the best supported and best backed women's team in the country, and I think we would make that an occasion. And then, as I said, you've sort of imbued the trophy then with importance by going and winning it, and having the big day out, and people will remember that. And then when it rolls around, in future times, you'll remember the day that you won it, and the sort of the sense of achievement around that. So yeah, so hopefully this year we can actually start to put our stamp on this trophy for the first time.
Would be good to see. Nia Hannon, Lucy O'Rourke, Rebecca Devereaux all started. They'd be familiar faces in the Shell squad. Special word for Maddie McKinley, who came up, I think, from the under 20, under 19, under 20s. I saw Maddie play last year for the underage team when they won a cup in Talca. She was outstanding. So good to see her getting involved. Special word, I think you mentioned her a few moments ago there, Maeve Woolmer, 17, joined from Athlone Town. This young lady, Dunny, I think is going to be, if she can keep it going with the Shels, she is going to have some career. She's absolutely brilliant, and I was delighted for her. She was the LOI TV player of the match as voted by yours truly, and so so I have to big her up a bit there. But it was good to see Maeve. And you wouldn't have noticed that our Ireland future star Leah Doyle wasn't even involved in the matchday squad. So that's how good Maeve did in a similar position to Leah.
Well, that's
Um,
fantastic. That's fantastic to hear, Andy. To be honest, because obviously, like we have our sort of our tried and trusted warriors. We've added, some American flair to the team this year, but very good to see that there's still youth coming through and players that hitherto we wouldn't have heard about, but that are of that standard that we can keep that conveyor belt going.
yeah, I was very impressed with them. So I think this coming Saturday, the women are away to Treaty. You would hope for a similar performance and a similar results to keep the league form going. Before we wrap up, Dunny, we have a couple of questions that sort of what we touched on this last week regarding the women's side. So John Fraser, good friend of the show, Dunny. John says 100% agree about Leah Doyle needing an Ireland call up. He's given her stats about goals and assists. Could you imagine an Ireland 11 with Leah playing full back behind Katie McCabe? Two good reds there, Dunny. Can you visualise it?
Absolutely, yeah. I think John's spot on. I think if Leah keeps doing what she's doing, I really don't see, particularly like we've seen Alex Kavanagh and even Clancy recently be in the squads, so that augurs well that the league is being watched and that Shels are on the radar, and if Leah Doyle keeps doing Leah Doyle things, I have absolutely no doubt that she'll get called into one of those squads in the near future.
Apologies, Tony. Sorry, guys, I was on mute there. Losing the run of myself. Thanks, Tony. So another one here, just from John, just regarding the improvement of social media coverage. We see the post match highlights on YouTube. Both squads getting inside match day videos, which is really good to see. And then finally, Donny, this is from another Fraser. I think it's Bernadette. Thanks, Bernadette. Great podcast, lads. Donny mentioned the women's players at the men's game. They turn up to every home game after training. Could some of the men turn up for the women's home games? It might boost attendance. That's a interesting question.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Bernadette obviously doesn't miss a game. One of the best Shels fans around, without a doubt. As far as I'm aware, just off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure that was it Sam Bone and Ellis Chapman. Certainly, Ellis Chapman and another player were at the last home game in the league, the 7-0 demolition of Cork. There were a couple of players there that were spotted. As more of an organised thing, I think is what Bernard is maybe alluding to, in that it was very noticeable for the Galway match that 7 or 8 players had come out with Pearl. The Pearl had organised it deliberately
Yes.
to come as a group to sort of have a united front of them all coming together and bringing Mackenzie to her first game, or first men's game, and so on. So that kind of thing, I think, would be healthy to see. I think it's something you could kind of weaponize amongst the fan base as well, and say, if you could announce it in advance, to say the player X, Y, and Z will be there, signing autographs or whatever. Get along, get your jersey signed, blah blah blah, and then sit back and enjoy the match. There's definitely ways that would work. The issue, obviously, I suppose that would sort of spring to mind would be load management when it comes to time. So, obviously they play Friday nights. I'm pretty certain that they're in the AUL.
Yes, Saturday mornings,
for recovery session Saturday morning. So, would we, would they be free by 4 p.m. to come down? I'm sure they probably would. I'm speculating, obviously, but I definitely think it's something that, if not every other week or whatever, it's something that could be organised a couple of times a year. That if you were to, look at the fixture list and go, okay, in 2 months' time, we're going to have 7 or 8 or 9 players show up for this game, and we'll push it as a club. I think that would be a good idea. And show a bit of a unity from the players' perspective.
Very good. Yeah, no, it's a good question there. You never know, in the summer months, on a nice Saturday afternoon, we might see more Reds from the playing side there. So, Dunny, thanks very much. There's a lot that we got through there. Busy May bank holiday weekend ahead, and we wouldn't have it any other way. It's a great time to be a Red, and despite the perhaps frustrations on match nights, we love it, and we keep on supporting the Reds. We've got 2 big games to come. So, Dunny, I think we'll both be in Tolka next Monday, so podcast will probably be the following day. But in the meantime, if anyone has any questions, any feedback, get them in now, and we can address them on the next show. So until then, enjoy the weekend ahead. And Dunny, thanks again for all your wonderful input, and we shall speak to everyone next week. Have a good week ahead.